Hey everybody, welcome back to Top Ends Which Wins. Luke, how are you doing today?
I am doing good, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. Copa America is about to start in the next couple days, and we also have Euros games on all throughout the afternoon and morning. So it's been fun lately.
A lot of football going on. And the good thing about this football is we don't necessarily have the fantasy investment that we do for regular Premier
Mm-hmm.
League matches. So I myself, I don't want to speak for Paul here. It's nice to watch football for just the sake of football. It's very relaxing and there's not nearly as much stress. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're going to do with this episode though is kind of dive into what we see for Copa America coming up, give you a nice preview of what we expect for how it's going to play out. Obviously tournament football can be very up and down. So, this is just our 2 cents worth here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do a little coverage of the Euros as well. Talk about what's been going on up until this point, which, just so you have a point of reference, we are on match day 5, I believe, in the Euros.
Yeah. It's currently June 19th.
Scotland just finished up their match against Switzerland, where they drew 1-1. It's a good point of reference there. But first, Copa America. So, Paul, with Copa America coming up, the U.S., they play on Sunday. They have Bolivia in their first
Mm-hmm.
matchup. Probably with respect to Bolivia, if we want to go on the FIFA rankings, for example, the lowest ranked team they'll play in their group. What do you expect from the U.S. on Sunday?
With this being the first match of Copa, I think there is an expectation of I'm a little scared, honestly, because I really am happy that they're playing Bolivia first. Much rather than play Bolivia than Uruguay to start the group off. But to me, it's like it just sets the stage for the whole tournament because if they come into this match and they are a dominant performance, get 3 points, it sets the group off in a great way for them to pretty easily advance, take steps to get in the knockout rounds, and really just have a great tournament. But also, if we drop points to Bolivia in the first match, that is red alert kind of vibes. So there's just nervousness, a little bit. But go ahead.
Yeah, from my perspective, we should lay out, right. The U.S. is currently, so the group that they're in,
Mm-hmm.
they're in Group C.
Yes.
They have Bolivia in their group. They have Panama in their group, and then they have Uruguay in their group as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uruguay, just for point of reference, is FIFA ranked number 15, and U.S. is currently 11. We do need to keep in mind, though, that last time the U.S. played Uruguay, Uruguay did win, and that was with them fielding a pretty weak squad
Mm-hmm. That
as
was a
well.
friendly from last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, the U.S. does play Bolivia first on Sunday. They'll be playing in Texas, so we would expect hopefully a good turnout for the U.S. for the Stars and Stripes. As you said, though, it's a little worrisome though. Whenever you do play,
Mm-hmm.
the team that you expect to get 3 points from first, and ever in a tournament setup, puts a lot of pressure on that first matchup because
It
your
does.
road's going to get more difficult the deeper you go into your group. So, with that being said, if we don't get those 3 points, even if it's a draw, I think it'll be a disappointment for us because the aspiration for this Copa America, it's not to just get out of the group. It's not to make it past the first round of knockouts. It is to get to the final and win the final.
Mm-hmm.
That is the expectation. And if you think anything less, I think you're setting the standard pretty low, in my opinion.
I completely agree, Luke. And I think a really interesting point out of this too is that if the U.S. advances out of the group, they'll end up playing the. So if they come in second, they'll probably play Brazil first round, most likely, because they'll play the winner of the Group D if they end up in the second slot of Group C. So that's a matchup that obviously we just saw the U.S. play Brazil a couple weeks ago, and they handled it very well. But I think this is a completely different stage of Copa America, and it's not a matchup I think that's like sound the panic alarm, but it's obviously one of the best teams in this tournament. So you would prefer to avoid one of those big boys until probably the semis. I mean, in the quarters, you probably want an easier matchup. So it could possibly be Colombia, Costa Rica, or Paraguay, depending on who else gets out of Group D. So yeah, I think you really want to win the group, and starting off against Bolivia with 3 points sets the stage for to hopefully securing that A spot. You know.
And ultimately, we do know, I think everyone, this is a tried and true statement that if you can start out tournament play with 3 points, your odds of moving on to the next round are significantly higher as opposed to, dropping points in that first match. So the first match really sets the tone for what you can expect for the rest of the tournament. There are caveats where teams can find their way out of it. It just makes life a lot more difficult, ultimately.
Yeah.
We're looking for 3 points against Bolivia. But the thing to keep in mind too is the U.S. is based upon the odds here. The U.S. is not expected to win. They are so currently with the odds, the U.S. sits plus 1,200.
Yeah.
And Argentina odds on to win first. Of course, Argentina are the favorites to win with Brazil closely behind. Argentina is at plus 175 with Brazil at plus 225 and Uruguay at plus 500.
Okay.
And then there's a drop off there from Uruguay at plus 500 and the U.S. is next at plus 1,200. So it's a pretty big gap.
One of the front runners.
While U.S. does have a higher FIFA World Ranking, the odds do not, line up with that FIFA World Ranking, even though the U.S. is ranked lower and, should therefore be a better team. Mm-hmm. I think we all know that Uruguay is, going through the World Cup qualifying they do. It's a brutal and very, very. It's baptism through the fire, to be honest.
It's a completely different level than CONCACAF.
There's very, very different. And Uruguay does have a lot of talented, very, very high level players. The U.S. obviously have those as well, but those Uruguayan players who are their top performers, they are performing at the very, very top level. You got Valverde with Real Madrid winning the Champions League. Darwizzi, he seems to be better when he puts on the Uruguayan jersey.
Bentancur.
One
of your favorite Tottenham players?
Garnacho. There's a lot of really Garnacho's Argentina. Sorry, I don't know why I was thinking that. Whoops. Good catch. Good catch there. I'm glad that didn't slip
we like
the cracks.
To fact check right on the pod,
Yep, good catch there. But so my expectation for what I think in this group, the U.S., I do expect them to get 3 points initially against Bolivia. I could see us struggling a little bit against Panama, and I don't know what to expect against Uruguay. I know that everyone's really excited about the performance against Brazil where we drew 1-1. But to be very frank, the result against Colombia really is what's kind of sitting in my mind right now.
Yeah.
And playing against Uruguay, I feel like a similar result could come out if we don't show up. That is ultimately what is most important for this team. If we show up and we have our edge, I think we can compete with anyone in the tournament.
Completely agree. Yep.
Even going against Greg's poor coaching. That's something that we'll just kind of skirt around the edges a little bit.
Okay, I'll stop.
We'll skirt around the edges a little bit because we could talk about that for a very long time on this pod.
But we don't need to about way too much.
Yeah.
So,
but it does need to be said that we can still put in good performances with Greg being the one picking the squad, tactically setting us up. All in all, I do expect us to make a deep run in the tournament. To be very frank, I don't think we're going to win the tournament. Just especially with that memory of Colombia in the back of my mind, I'm a little worried about that. And I worry that it's a little bit of foreshadowing for what could happen later on in the tournament. If we play Brazil again, I think they'll approach the match in a very different way. And to be honest, Matt Turner was incredible in that match against Brazil. If he wasn't on it, Brazil could have had another 1 or 2 goals early, and then who knows what could have happened in that match.
Yeah, I will slightly push back against the Colombia thing, Luke, because I do think it should be stated that this is the first time this USMNT has played together in probably 2 or 3 months, So I think the first.
But what's different for any other international team?
Yes, I see that. But I think coming back together as a group, getting the cohesion back, getting the rhythm of the whole team back in the same place, I think that takes a little time. And I think one match as your first match back before a big tournament, all these friendlies, it could just be a one-off thing too. It's very possible it could be. So we'll see. I mean, after the Brazil performance, I think we both feel a lot better about it. But it's just always with this USMNT, there's always the duality of we're not sure which team's going to show up or is the edge going to be there. So hopefully they're just flying right out of the Brazil match and keeping that mentality going. Because if that team shows up to Copa America, we could be having discussions about them in the semifinal and in the final easily too. So I'm hoping. I feel optimistic about this U.S. team right now. I really do think that the pieces are kind of coming together, and you have players that are probably in, I'd say, as a collective in better form than maybe they've ever been as a whole unit playing together.
Yeah, collectively, I think they are playing really well. But one of my concerns too is that individually at club level, a lot of the players, except for I'd say Pulisic is an aberration on this. Jedi.
Where are you going with this?
I'm saying a lot of them have really had really tough club years.
Well, I mean, honestly,
Is
so if
what
you
I
if you go
see.
down the list, you can say Pulisic had a great club year, McKinney had a
Well, that's
great
what I
club
was.
year,
That's what I was. I'm just saying that.
Jedi, Chris Richards, Matt Turner did not. I mean, if you
We
think
know
about it,
Gio
Scally had a
didn't,
pretty
Weah
good.
didn't. I'm just saying that it's kind of up and down.
Yeah,
There's
I think
there's a
there's
big disparity in how individuals performed at their clubs. What I want to see from a lot of these players is get in a rhythm where they can start to build confidence back. And a tournament like Copa America is an incredible time to get your name on the radar of a bigger club. If you want to make a move, if you want to go somewhere else to a different league, if you want to, kind of take a step up in Europe, if you put in really good performances in Copa America, that puts you on the radar of teams that otherwise would not have seen you or noticed you.
for sure. Yeah,
So, from the perspective of the long term development of this team, I really think that Copa America could be great if we go out there and put in performances that are noteworthy and it catches the eye of different clubs because a lot of our players, I think they need moves. People like, Chris Richards, Pulisic, Jedi, all of them. Jedi is one that I think could make a move next. Honestly, I think a move could be good
yeah.
for him because he's shown his level, and Fulham is an established Premier League club at this team at this point in time. But I think he could be, he's a Champions League level left back in my opinion.
I agree. I agree with you for what he does defensively and his pace.
The issue is his age, though. That's what's keeping some
26, 28-ish in that range.
I'll look it up. You can keep going.
But I know I agree with you. I think Jedi is easily a Champions League quality left back. I think to him it's really just dependent on the system. If he's asked to do things that he's not good at, he's probably not going to thrive. And that's honestly, if he finds the right fit for that in a system where he can kind of roam a little bit on the left side, use his ability to win the ball back, and
So Jedi,
I think he could be a great fit somewhere.
To follow up on our point, Jedi is currently 26. He's been rumored to make a move to, some top 6 clubs in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened for whatever reasons, but I could see him fitting in really nicely at some top clubs and, maybe even Italy, maybe go to Germany.
Italy would be a good shout for him.
He's a good left back, and his services could be needed. So if he puts in really good consecutive performances in Copa America, and the U.S. makes it deeper into the knockouts, I could see him making a move. And I think the one wild card in this tournament for us is what Gio Reyna is going to show up. If he shows up and he's the world beater that we know he is,
like Nations League last year,
I'd feel good in saying that we can win the entire Copa America if Gio Reyna is put in positions to succeed, where it can be impactful. Can he be impactful and actualize what he's trying to do? If he's able to, then we can win Copa America.
And that's
no doubt.
The interesting thing about that too is in the Brazil match, he was playing a deeper midfield role, and I think he actually put in a really good performance in that. I mean, obviously we didn't see him creating too much for the U.S. attack, but he did a good job of like helping to control the pace of the match and defending against Brazil whenever they were putting in a lot of pressure on the U.S. I think he did a good job, and that also shows that he can play in almost any match we need him to. It just doesn't have to be matches where we're going to be on the front foot and attacking. Because I mean, we want him on the pitch. Like he is easily, him and Pulisic are probably the 2 best attackers we have.
Here's the thing, though. I haven't looked at their heat maps, so I could be wrong. But in my opinion, it always feels like Weston is further forward than Gio in the way that Greg has been setting up recently. And that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I think he wants Gio playing more of almost like this Tony Cruz, drop deeper, play the ball forward, just use his really dynamic ability to play long balls and try to use that from a deeper lying position. but I want him forward.
We want
I
him as a
don't
10.
want him playing that far back on the pitch. And yes,
Exactly.
he has been fulfilling those duties of what he's been asked to do, of running back, trying to make tackles, breaking up the play. He's been doing a lot better with that. But I would rather see McKinney doing that and Gio going forward. And that's, no insult to Weston. Weston is really good at crashing the box. And it does fit Greg's style, which is ultimately the reason why, because he wants people in the box for every single cross they're playing in. But you want to hear a funny stat?
Yes,
Whenever
I
the
would love
U.S.
to.
played Brazil, I want you to guess what percentage our crossing percentage was.
Our
guess.
crossing percentage, 15%.
Guess how many successful crosses we made.
Maybe 3.
You're guessing 3. So against Brazil, we made one accurate cross, the 9% success rate on our crosses. That
Not
is
good.
horrible.
Not good.
Whenever you are designing your entire offense to get players on the wings and behind to play the ball in the box, and you can complete one cross the entire match, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're completely
I know
right.
Brazil is one of the best teams in the world, but if your entire game plan is to play the ball in the box from wide positions, why are we even doing it if we're not going to do it successfully or even have any sort of connection on it? So
Deep breath.
need to stop because I could dive
breath.
too deep into it.
No, you're right. But that is a good point to bring up, though, Luke. That like the system we're playing is not, at the end of the day, letting players shine for exactly what they're good at. And that's part of the questions heading into Copa, and that's really what we're talking about. So I think you're very right to bring that up.
My problem is that I'm a football snob.
You
I
are.
love watching beautiful football.
Yeah.
And the way that we play, there's not a lot of intricacy. There's not a lot of 1-2s. It feels very a little stagnant at times. But ultimately, the goal is to play it wide, get crosses in the box. Maybe win a second ball. All of those, it is a way to play. It's not the way that I prefer to watch a team play. So
That's a good line to draw.
there's an interesting dichotomy in myself of where I
Certified
don't
West Ham
enjoy.
hater.
I don't. Oh God, don't get me started.
David
on David
Moyes.
Moyes.
Luke Scott.
Good thing I don't have to watch him next season.
Yeah.
All the respect to David Moyes, had an incredible career managing. He's accomplished a ton. Don't like the way he plays football.
Yeah.
But to finish on what I was saying, I find myself struggling sometimes watching the way that we play because we have the talent to play in a more dynamic, intricate, possession type style, and we don't do it. So, it is international football. It's different. The team doesn't play as often. You can't build those reps like you could at club level, but it does still frustrate the hell out of me.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, so we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit, I guess, then go to Euro stuff. But before we move to that, who would you have as the starting 9 for the U.S. going into Copa, starting for the Bolivia match?
So Matt Turner, I'd put Jedi on the left.
No, just the starting 9. We don't have to go through the whole. We can go through the whole.
Let's just do the entire starting 11.
Okay, that's fine.
I can do it real quick. Matt Turner starting in goal. Jedi left back. Tim Ream left center back. Chris Richards right center back. I'd have Scally playing right back. I can't really pick the formation because I know Greg's going to pick the formation, to be very frank.
Yeah.
In the 4-3-3, I'd play with how he sets up. Gio's going to be playing that deeper role. Have him next to... I don't think Tyler Adams should play in Copa America, to be honest. I think his body needs rest. He's going to play.
It's scary.
He's going to play, and I really will be very worried when he's out on the pitch. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And then I think, for the midfield 3, it would be Gio, Weston, and...
I mean, maybe Johnny, honestly, the way they've been going. I'd be perfectly fine. Probably Musa, though. Greg will probably start Musa.
What I would start, people aren't going to like this, I would start Gio, Musa, and Johnny. That's who I would start in the midfield.
I see where you're coming from, but
what I would do, this would be a little different. I would actually play Weston as the right winger, and then if Sargent's healthy, Sargent's my starting 9.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
That's my personal preference, but I think Flo will probably start if I had to guess.
I don't know. I mean, he didn't start against Brazil.
He didn't. Pepe did, but I don't know. That's just my guess. He looked pretty good whenever he subbed on.
Yeah.
And then left wing Pulisic, obviously that's a lock. Do you have any changes for what you would make?
I think the midfield is our biggest area of contention. I think I personally would love to see Johnny, Weston, and Gio playing in front of them.
Okay.
I think it should be like Johnny deep six, Weston kind of floating a little bit, and then Gio just creating through the middle, because that's easily his best skill set. Is when he gets in those spaces, like kind of half spaces farther up the pitch, and also when he has runners in front of him too. He is easily the best player at creating those situations for the U.S.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially if we
Yeah.
have Ballo starting, like he needs somebody to let him run in behind, and Gio has the best skill set for letting him do that.
What do you think about Haji Wright starting at 9? The 9.
I wouldn't hate it.
He fits our play style the best out of anyone, in my opinion. He's a big body who can take advantage of the million crosses we play in.
I think you are right about that. I think Haji kind of enables that front three to be more fluid, because he has the ability where he can drift out to a wing more so than anybody else probably in the 9 pull. I mean, Ballo can, but I think Haji does a lot better job of hold up play and in that capacity. But it would be Sargent starting for me, because I think we haven't really seen it. We haven't seen it in a U.S. shirt yet, but his ability to finish has come a long way.
That's come a long way, but his hold up play's gotten better too.
Yeah.
And if he's doing that in a league like the Championship, where it's so physical, and it's, to be very frank, one of the better leagues in Europe.
Yeah.
It's just so competitive and tense, I guess is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
But that's a pressure cooker for him to develop his skills. And I think he has really developed his finishing, like you said, but then his ability to kind of hold up play as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I really do think though that we for sure have not seen Sargent's best ability, even close to like his ceiling even at this point in time in a U.S. jersey. Like we haven't seen any of that, Like it was a little bit at the World Cup because he ended up starting a couple matches because of the injuries and everything, but I think he's easily the highest ceiling. I mean, maybe not easily the highest ceiling, but I think at this current time, I think he offers so much to the U.S. from the starting 9 point.
From the 9 perspective, another player who really needs a chance or something to go their way is Ballo. He really struggled this past season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whenever he signed for the U.S., not signed, but whenever he committed to the U.S., everyone thought it was the equivalent of Messi becoming U.S., right? U.S.-based international.
What is the bar in Orlando from the Instagram post? I can't remember. It's like, I don't know what it is, but deep USMNT Twitter knows what we're talking about. But
yeah, so it's just been frustrating how that's played out. And overall, it's been very frustrating for how a lot of seasons have gone for our players this season. Yeah. So want to see success for all of them here in Copa America. I think they need it. They need the confidence boost. And like we said, we would just prefer to see this team make a deep run and kind of get ready for that 2026 on home soil, because that's going to be a huge tournament for them. And hopefully 2 years from now, they're going in great form, playing at really high levels, and they're ready for that move. Maybe we're seeing a young 16-year-old making his World Cup debut then at that point.
Oh my! Could you imagine? Luke, you need to say the name.
Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, just so people. I think a lot of people that probably listen to this podcast know who he is.
If you listen to the podcast, you know who he is. But in case you don't know who he is, he's an American international. He has grown up in Philadelphia Union system, and he's a 14-year-old who has caught the attention of major international clubs over water. He signed with Man City because of the Brexit regulations. If you're brought from an international country anywhere outside of England, you cannot start at an academy until 18 or be brought into the team until 18. So he will stay here with the Philadelphia Union until he turns 18. Once he turns 18, he will go over to England and assume his place at Man City. So he is one to watch for the future. 2 years from now, who knows where he's at? He currently is playing for Philadelphia Union 2. So with that being said, no goal contributions yet playing for Union 2, but the possibility of him playing for the first team has been mentioned already.
Yeah.
that it's something that could happen this summer, which
Hmm.
he would be the youngest MLS player ever to play.
Yeah. I mean, the only question we really have to ask right now, though, is will Man City be like Division 8 from all the ramifications of their rampant cheating? So
We'll see.
we'll see. You know, you
Yeah.
never know. That would.
Yeah.
I hope there's a contract. There's a little like clause in his contract, just in case.
You never know. You never
Sorry, I
know.
had to throw that out there.
It is very interesting though to see how he develops, and I jokingly make that kind of comment about him playing in the World Cup in 2026.
It's possible. You never know.
I don't think so. I mean, Christian Pulisic, he made his debut at 17, I believe.
Yeah.
So, it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Very different time though for the U.S. Soccer Federation.
There will be a lot of young talents that are kind of growing and developing, and pushing for a position to maybe push out a more established player by 2026. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But overall, I really want to see a good experience, good effort, and good results ultimately here in Copa America to build for that World Cup in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. To wrap up this little segment here, how about we both make a prediction about who we think will win Copa America?
I'm going to be boring. I'm going to say Argentina. Yeah.
So that's honestly who I would go with too. I think Argentina have maybe figured it out with Messi at this point. They feel like a well-oiled machine. We'll see how. I mean, so their group. I mean, I think they should easily make it out of their group, and then from there we just. I mean, so let's see. Their group is Canada. Jesse Marsch at Canada now. That's interesting.
We'll talk about that here in a second.
Yeah, and then Chile and Peru. So honestly, pretty straightforward group for Argentina. They should make it out very straightforward. But
to follow up on that though,
Yeah.
I see Messi possibly ending his international career, going out on the Copa America. If he wins that, then what has he not done, right? I think he's already won a Copa America in his time.
dude, I don't think he's going to pass on the World Cup in 2 years.
I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I think he'll for sure play in the World Cup.
He did publicly say that Inter Miami will be the last club team that he plays for before he retires. Will he be in the MLS 2 years from now? I really don't think so, but maybe he keeps cashing that check and just, shows up and makes an appearance every third match or something like that. I don't know. But I do think Argentina will win Copa America. They are the odds-on favorite. They have incredible depth, and they have tournament knowledge too. They've gone deep into tournaments. They've been in those pressure situations, and they've won. Ultimately, that's in their main competition, in my opinion, Brazil. Brazil does not look good right now. They're a team who have a lot of.
We know Ronaldinho's out on Brazil. So.
I was gonna make a joke about that, but decided not to.
Sorry, I brought it up.
It's okay. It's all right. He was very adamant in his belief.
The U.S. broke Ronaldinho's soul. Did not have that on my 2024 bucket list.
I don't think anyone did.
That's one of the best USMNT moments, probably.
What does that say?
I know.
My concern with Brazil, though, is I see a team that has a lot of very talented individuals, but no cohesion.
Yeah, it's not a collective.
Not a collective. And obviously with Brazil, historically, you have a lot of very talented individuals, but ultimately they would still play together enough to where, the individual talent was able to show, but collectively they still played as a team. And this team, Vinicius is incredible. He's insanely talented, one of the best players in the world. But I'm just not overly impressed by anyone on their team. I know they're talented, but I don't see them playing as a team. So.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The talent is there, but I don't see, especially like looking at Argentina, like that team has, it just feels like right now, like internal grit and like a way to win matches. Like they always seem to find a way at this point. So we'll have to see if Brazil maybe things flip. Maybe Brazil can figure it out. But there's a lot of there's so many more question marks with Brazil heading into the Copa than there are Argentina.
Yeah, I mean, what happens when they play Costa Rica in the group stage? Costa Rica plays 5 back. They drop 4 into the midfield. We'll play one striker.
Prepare to be CONCACAF
right?
Brazil.
It's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be difficult, and I just don't know. I don't see them winning, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So.
I agree. Do you want to touch anything more on Copa? Do you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
Canada
let's talk
or
about Jesse Marsch a little bit.
okay?
I think that the move that he made to Canada.
I kind of like it.
Okay, you go first then.
Yeah, I think for Marsh, I mean, I think you're going into there's a lot of things with Canada. Obviously, we know about the money situation that they've struggled to even have funding for basic things for their national team, which is big from the federation perspective. Like that's something that to keep players like Alfonso Davies and Jonathan David, like you have to have a certain level of stuff. So I think that's all been sorted out. And obviously they got Marsh, who is coached in some of the biggest leagues in the world. And his system, I think, actually is going to fit this Canadian team pretty well. I think the high pressing kind of like system that I think that could utilize what Canada has in their national. Like I think they have like a pretty talented group of individuals. You know,
They do. I
it's
think
it's not of like I don't think it's on par with like anybody. Like to me, they should fall somewhere between like probably top 15, top 25 in the world with what they what they have at all.
I don't know. In my opinion, I think they have a good collective of individuals and they really play well as a team. That's what they had going for them is
Yeah,
that they played well as a unit. If Brazil played like they did, they would utterly annihilate
yeah,
everyone in my opinion with their mentality. But my concern is that I think with Jesse Marsh, his system is high intensity.
yeah.
That you're
He
running the
asks a lot
entire
of his
and
players.
he builds his play around playing quick vertical balls and getting up the pitch as fast as you possibly can. With international football, I wonder if Jesse Marsh is going to change his playing style a little bit because that's something where the repetition is so important. You have to know your pressing triggers, you have to know when to run, when to play the ball directly. And I don't know if his central midfield has the ability to play the balls that need to be played. I think where is Canada really good? They're pretty good on the wings. Buchanan's a good winger. He's
Hmm.
biding his time.
He can
He's gonna
really have
get in.
moments. Yeah, he's very talented.
He's
He
gonna
is.
work his way through Europe, in my opinion. Work higher up Europe. They have really good strikers. Jonathan David, he's gonna be going somewhere this summer, I think, and going to a really good club.
Yeah.
Alfonso Davies, great player, one of the best left backs in the world. Extremely, extremely gifted
Hmm.
from a technical perspective, but also from just athletically. He's an athlete is a good
Yes.
way to describe him. The rest of the team, though, I feel like there's a little bit of a drop off. So I think Jesse Marsh, for him to really get the best out of this team, I don't think it's going to be in this Copa America when you see the best of
I agree.
Canada. It's going to take
I
time.
completely agree with that.
I think he will be a good hire for them, but I don't expect them to perform that great in Copa America. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get settled in, get his players into a system, and for him to really implement things the way he wants to.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said, Luke. But especially the last statement that this is not going to happen right away. I mean, he was hired basically a month ago, and to me, I mean, leading into a big tournament like this, that's not that much time to really prepare your team and get his exact tactics in. Which, like you said, his tactics have to be played a certain way to pull them off. So maybe going into this tournament, he adapts a little bit, which we haven't seen him adapt at a club level. So we'll see.
He'll need to, and that's what I'm
He'll
saying
really
is
need to.
he's admitted in the past that maybe he didn't change his tactics as much as he needed to just adapt to what he had for the team. When he
Hmm.
was at Leeds, they struggled. He kept them up 1 year and then struggled after they stayed promoted. If he would have changed his tactics a little bit, and my concern here too is with his play style, it's very demanding on players. What happens if they pick up a really bad injury to, Buchanan or Davies, and then they're missing one of their key players?
Yeah,
This team will really struggle if they pick up that key injury.
especially when you're playing like a game every 3 days or 2 days, and then if you get through a group stage, you have to go to a knockout stage where you're playing even harder minutes on already tired legs. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I really do think long term that's a good hire by Canada.
I did say I think they're going to struggle, but I could see them getting out of their group as
It's
long
possible.
as the most important match for them. I mean, Chile is difficult because they're going to play even Peru. And so in that group, it's Group A. It's Argentina,
Hmm.
Canada, Peru, and Chile.
Yeah,
All of those matchups are difficult.
yeah,
Peru and Chile, they're going to be tough to beat. Argentina, we'll see what happens in that match. But I don't think Canada really. You never know. You never know what happens. But
And
I see Argentina winning that match.
so we were talking about this earlier before the podcast. I think it was before the podcast. But the time in which I think we were talking this when we were discussing Euros, but the time in which you play the best team in your group, where it falls in the fixtures of like early in the group stage or whatever, really, really actually matters.
It does.
Because
Yeah.
Canada's going to find Argentina in the very first match, and Argentina's going to look to start off running in this tournament. So if it's one of those situations too, like with Scotland when they started in the Euros, they played Germany. Germany was hosting. Germany put 5 by them, and that's really hard for them to bounce back. Scotland just tied today, so they still have somewhat of a chance, but due to the goal differential,
Yeah.
there's
So as we said earlier, how you start a tournament is very, very important to your chances of getting out of the group. But I think that is going to probably be a good segue for us to start talking about the Euros. Maybe we'll take a little break here and then come right back.
Yeah.
And discuss the Euros.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. I think we are going to do a little chat on the Euros and currently what we see playing out, teams that have caught our eye, players, all kinds of stuff like that. And also, like we said earlier in the podcast, we'll just say it again for reference. Today is June 19th, and we just had Scotland and Switzerland wrap up the last match of the day. So we're heading into matches tomorrow, and then there's most teams usually will have 2 more games to play at this point. So, what do you think of Euro so far, Luke?
I'm feeling very good about my prediction of Germany being the favorite in the tournament.
Yep.
They have looked very impressive. I mean, ever since Nagelsmann was appointed, I really feel like they've kind of turned a corner. He has pivoted the offense to be pretty much centered around Musiala and Wirtz, where you're almost having those dueling number 10s that can really be very incisive in their play. They link up play really nicely, but they are wizards with the ball at their feet too.
They're unbelievable, dude.
They can create space. And they remind me of Phil Foden, right? In those little half spaces. They exist in Musiala and Foden, I think, are very similar in some ways, where they can exist in the same space in a way that not very many people in the world can.
Yeah.
Right? They're masters of creating space in tight spaces.
I think, sorry to interrupt you, but I think you'll really enjoy this comparison. I think you could say Wirtz, Musiala, Foden, they're kind of like Steph Curry-esque, with the amount of gravity they have when they have the ball at their feet, where they just put so much pressure on defenses because you can't have one man on them. It has to be 2. Like, it realistically does. I mean, they have the ability to beat almost anybody one-on-one, and once they get past that one person, they also have the ability to move the ball on 2.
If Musiala has a direct NBA comp, I would say he's Kyrie.
Okay, I could see that one.
That's my comp because I think they're similar in their ability to create space with a very, whenever you watch them, they captivate your eyes.
Yeah.
You can see their creativity and their genius very, very blatantly whenever you watch them play. So that would be my comparison. But overall, Germany looks really good. I think hosting it in Germany is it's a little added bonus for them. But I would have expected them to put in these performances regardless if they were hosting or not.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because they, before whenever they had Hansi Flick, they were struggling. The World Cup didn't go as they were hoping.
They've struggled a lot, yeah.
And standards are very high in Germany, right? If you're not performing, then the German media will undoubtedly eviscerate the manager. It's very similar to the English media in that way. But they've been performing well, and I think that they can make a deep run in this tournament. Maybe we pivot this, and we can talk about England, because I think the narrative around England right now is, they played well in the first half, didn't play as good in the second half. But ultimately, in tournament football, you just need to get 3 points. And that matchup that they had against against Serbia. Serbia is a tough team, right?
They're a pretty talented team.
They have some really talented players.
Yeah, you want
right?
to kind of list
You look
them
at
off, Luke?
Mitrovic, Vlahovic, Milinkovic, Savic. You've got Lukic, who plays with Fulham. Kostic, who's a great player in, I believe he's in Italy. Yeah, he plays for Juve.
Yeah.
But they have a very talented team, and they were set up in a way that caused England a lot of problems. Gareth Southgate, not widely seen as, he gets a lot of flack.
The
right?
British Triple G, maybe.
Yeah. And I think, Serbia did find some joy in the second half there. So England will be interesting to watch. They play Denmark next, which will actually be tomorrow. And I think that Denmark is probably a better matchup for England than
Maybe.
Serbia. Yeah.
I see where you're coming from with that, but I think the reason why a lot of English fans are probably freaking out after that first match is that these are concerns they had going into the tournament they've always had with Southgate as manager. And it just seems like it never really changes. He does not want to play that free flowing creative style of football that the fans want to see. Which understandable. I mean, you're playing tournament football, it's different, but the amount of attacking talent they have, sometimes I wouldn't disagree with what they're saying. The English fans, most of the time that I mean, look at the list of attackers they have. I mean,
Here's what I think should happen for England. In my opinion, I think they would do better with having another defensive mid substitute in their team. So someone like Wharton or I think Wharton would be the best plug and play because you give Rice more ability to move forward higher up the pitch, and he's good going forward. Right? His counter pressing is elite, and if you can use that, England's entire plan is to try to counter press teams and get the ball back, play in transition, and play those quick vertical balls. That's what Gareth Southgate wants them to do. And Serbia countered that by just playing long repeatedly over and over again. But ultimately, I do think that if you add Wharton into that mix, allow Rice to push up a little bit higher and do his thing, then that really gives him the license to make a difference. Jude Bellingham can be a little bit more free in that situation. And I think that, Foden has more, the interplay will be a little bit better if they're able to push up higher on the pitch.
yeah.
And Foden just looked disconnected, right? He didn't really get many chances to play the ball. And that's why I don't get the negative feedback he's getting is he just didn't have any chances, right? And he's playing on the left wing, so he's not even playing that central position that he's been playing all season, which is where he really thrived. So there's a lot to unpack there for what England's trying to do.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I do think that, as the tournament goes on, there's a reason why they're one of the favorites for this. They're extremely talented. They have so many goals in the team from an attacking perspective.
They just have to find the goals.
They're going to find the goals. It's a matter of how soon they can find them.
Yeah. Also, I wish I would have put money on Luke defending Phil Foden on this podcast because that was the most predictable thing about this whole podcast.
I'm nothing if not predictable.
He is a Phil Foden apologist. There's no doubt. But I think you are correct, though, Luke. You are. It's how he's being utilized, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. We could go on about Gareth Southgate as well.
We could. But are there any other teams that have stood out to you so far in Euros?
I really want to shout out Romania. They put in an incredible performance against Ukraine. The 3 points getting out of that first match puts them in a position to get out of the group. And to be very frank, a lot of people probably didn't think Romania would be getting out of that group that they're in. You've got Romania, Slovakia, Belgium, and Ukraine. So if they are able to get out, it'll be a huge accomplishment for them. And it'll be great for their federation because Romania has struggled as of recently. So I really, really love the football they're playing. And ultimately, I've just loved watching all these matches. It's been so much fun. Some of the goals have been vicious.
Dude, it's been banger after banger after banger. It's unbelievable. If you watch the Turkey-Georgia match,
I know.
Crazy goals. And then today, I mean, Shaqiri with Switzerland, it feels like every game there's just a goal where you're like, oh, that one's better than the last match. That one's better than the last match. And it just keeps going. So,
and there's some really good matches coming up. We've got Denmark, England, Italy, Spain tomorrow. Friday, we've got the Netherlands and France. I think Mbappe will be out for that match. He's not going to be playing with his broken nose. That was pretty brutal too. His broken nose was bad.
There was so much blood.
There was a lot. Pretty instantly you could tell that the way he was hit and how he reacted to that, it was a pretty significant injury. So, as Twitter has been saying, we will ultimately get masked Mbappe coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that. But outside of that, I think the only other thing to really keep an eye on is with the Euros, with how many teams there are in the tournament, it's set up to where 4 of the third place teams will qualify to go on to the knockout stages. So whenever we're getting into the final, every team's playing their third match. Keep a very close eye on how the third place teams line up and how they ultimately, how it plays out is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because, you can come in third in your group and still qualify, which I really do like. It adds an extra layer to where, you can make mistakes and still move on to the next round.
Yeah, and it also shows the importance of not having those matches where you just let stuff fall completely apart.
Exactly.
Like we talked about with Scotland and Germany. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if Scotland doesn't give up 5 goals in the first match, they're in a lot better place right now, even if they still lose,
Yeah, completely.
So that's an added element to it that makes knockout football or group stage football even more interesting, which I think we all love seeing that,
I think my final call out is don't count Belgium out. They have been getting a lot of negative feedback in the press, maybe rightfully so. But they do have a lot of talented individuals. If they can just figure out how to line up at the back, then I think they can figure out a lot of their problems. But
yeah,
their main issue against Slovakia was that they couldn't play out. They could not get the ball really to the halfway line. And then you have
which is so sad when you have De Bruyne.
You have talented players like De Bruyne, Lukaku, Trossard, Doku. All of them are great with the ball at their feet. They can really finish chances. But if you can't get the ball to them, then you can't have goals.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's so crazy to me. Like, there's a different universe where Lukaku scored over the last 5 years. He's scored some of the biggest goals in Europe. Like, there's no question. If he finishes some of the chances he's had in a different universe, he could be one of the biggest soccer stars in the world. Yeah. Just for the moments he's had, and it just feels like he's somewhat cursed, which I feel bad for him. Because I mean, he puts himself in these positions, and it just somehow you're just like, man, it just doesn't connect.
Speaking of Belgium, keep an eye on one of their central midfielders, Onana. It seems like he'll be making a move here pretty soon. Everton, they're probably going to sell him. Yeah. I think there's some sustainability and profit rules that they must stay within. But I think by selling Onana, they should be able to balance their books and will not have to sell Branthwaite, which is just ridiculous. Manchester United came in and offered 35 million plus add-ons for Branthwaite. He's valued at over 70 million pounds.
Yeah, that's just Manchester United for you.
It's an interesting message they're sending there. I don't know if they were misquoted or they're just intentionally trying to, take the piss out of Everton.
I think that's the Manchester United aura that they think they still have.
They're going to change. They're going to change with their new administration and how they're putting in key figures up top in their upper management. Manchester United will be back. And it'll be happen pretty soon.
I agree.
So prepare yourself for that if you're not a United fan. But ultimately, the Euros have been a real joy to watch so far. I'm really, really enjoying watching them. And it's just a lot of fun to have enjoyable football to watch.
It is. It is. After the break from the Premier League, it's fun to see all these different players that we love to watch play in different jerseys and different setups. So we'll see. Do you want to... Are you feeling good with your Germany prediction, Luke? I know you said earlier you are, but would you like to pivot to another team at this point, or you
no,
you feel good about that?
I've made money off my initial investment.
The stock has rose.
If only I would have invested money.
Yeah,
but I do feel good about my prediction of Germany. Possibly winning the Euros. With any major international tournament, it is hard to predict because there's so much variance, and one performance I could feel entirely different. But I do feel like overall Germany are the best bet to eventually win the Euros. So I'm very happy with that initial pick.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it right there.
Yeah, I think we'll call it a close there. But
any closing thoughts, Luke?
No, just turn that TV on, enjoy the matches as they're going on, and really just try to sit back and enjoy the summer of football. There's a lot of good matches coming from the Euros and also Copa America. So, it's really enjoyable time to be a football fan right now.
It really is. And just so everybody knows, I think we may have an article coming out on our site sometime soon in preparation of the U.S. for Copa America. Obviously, just focusing on the USMNT. But yeah, like Luke said, this is an exciting time to be a football fan. So if you want to just talk about any of the matches, if you want to engage with us on socials, Twitter's the best place for us. So
our Twitter
we
account
look
is
forward to
at
it.
Top Bin Twins. Pretty easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure to reach out before Elon Musk crashes the site and ruins it altogether. So
Yeah.
get in there while you can.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Yep. Bye, guys. Have a good rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever it is.
All right. Bye.